Did Jesus ever feel scared? Not concerned for someone else. Not sad, but scared for himself. Sweating, shaking, close to breaking down. Most people picture Jesus as calm through every trial he faced. Calm at the wedding, calm during the storm, calm even walking toward his own death. But Luke's gospel records a night when Jesus prayed so hard his sweat fell like drops of blood. Read this line again. Drops of blood falling from sweat hours before his arrest. This single verse changes how you see Jesus, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what happened in the garden, what caused this reaction, and why this moment matters for anyone who has ever felt anxious before a hard day. We are in Luke chapter 22, near the end of Jesus' life on earth. Luke wrote his gospel as a doctor, a companion of Paul, addressing a Gentile audience who needed a clear, orderly account of Jesus' life. He gathered eyewitness testimony and wrote with careful detail, which explains why Luke alone among the gospel writers includes the detail about sweat like blood. This scene happens the same night as the Last Supper, right before the arrest leading to the crucifixion. Jesus already shared the Passover meal with his friends. He already told them one would betray him. He already washed their feet. Now he walks out into the dark, knowing what comes next. He knows the beating, the trial, the cross. This is the last quiet moment before everything changes. Jesus spends this moment in a garden called Gethsemane, a name meaning oil press, a fitting name for the place where Jesus gets crushed under pressure. One more piece of context helps this scene land with more weight. Passover commemorates an older story, God delivering the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery through the blood of a lamb. The Gospel writers connect Jesus directly to this older story, casting him as the final Passover lamb. This night in the garden sits right at the center of this connection. A few hours after the meal, a few hours before the sacrifice. Read Luke 22:39 through 42. And he came out and went, as he was accustomed, to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place, he said unto them, Pray so you enter not into temptation. And he withdrew from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Break this down. The Mount of Olives sits across a small valley from Jerusalem, a place Jesus visited often, so this spot felt familiar to him. Matthew and Mark tell us Jesus brought Peter, James, and John a little closer than the rest of the group, the same three who watched him transform in glory on another mountain earlier in his ministry. Now they watch him fall apart instead. He asked his friends to stay near and pray because he wanted support close by during this trial. Then he walked a short distance away, roughly the distance of a tossed stone, close enough to be heard, far enough for privacy. The cup he mentions stands for suffering, a common image in Jewish scripture for a painful assignment from God. Hebrew prophets, writing centuries earlier, used a cup as a picture of judgment poured out on sin. Jesus faces more than physical pain in the hours ahead. He faces carrying the full weight of human wrongdoing, a burden heavier than any beating or nail. Jesus asks his Father to remove this suffering if possible. Then he speaks the line defining the whole prayer, not my will, but yours be done. He wants a way out, and he chooses obedience anyway. Hold on to this line, because the rest of the story flows from this decision. Now read Luke 22:43 and 44. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in an agony he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as though great drops of blood fell down to the ground. Notice how this connects to the first section. Jesus already asked God for relief. God's answer arrives through an angel, not by removing the suffering, but by giving Jesus strength to face what comes next. His anguish deepens rather than fades, and his prayer grows more urgent, not less. Then Luke gives us this striking detail, sweat like drops of blood. Jesus experienced a real physical reaction to extreme distress, a documented condition called hematohidrosis, where severe stress causes blood vessels near sweat glands to break, mixing blood with sweat. Doctors have recorded rare cases of this happening under extreme fear or pressure. including reports involving soldiers facing execution and prisoners awaiting sentencing. Luke, a physician, chose this word with care. He describes a body under genuine physical strain, not a poetic exaggeration. A few verses later, Luke adds one more detail worth noticing. When Jesus rose from prayer and returned to his friends, he found them asleep, worn out from grief. The men he asked to stay awake and pray for him drifted into sleep instead, unable to manage even this small task. Jesus faced the heaviest night of his life essentially alone, supported only by an angel, while his closest friends slept a few feet away. Here is something worth noting for anyone who assumes ancient religious writers added dramatic flourishes for effect. Modern medicine did not confirm hematohidrosis as a genuine condition until centuries after Luke wrote this account. Luke owned no medical textbook describing broken blood vessels near sweat glands, no science explaining the mechanism behind blood mixing with sweat. He simply reported what witnesses described from this night, a detail modern doctors later confirmed as a real, documented physical response to extreme distress. A detail this specific, matching a condition doctors would not name for close to 2,000 years, points toward a physician recording an event he genuinely believed happened, rather than inventing poetry for dramatic effect. Step back and consider what this means for you. Jesus, fully God, also lived fully human, in a body reacting to fear the same way yours does. Your heart races before a hard conversation. Your stomach twists before a diagnosis. Your hands shake before a decision changing everything. Jesus felt this too, at a level most people never face. Picture someone waiting outside an operating room the night before major surgery, unsure if they will wake up. Or picture a parent sitting by the phone, waiting on a doctor to call back with test results. This dread, this physical weight in the chest, matches what Jesus carried in the garden. He did not fake calm. He brought his real fear straight to his Father, asked honestly for another way, then chose obedience anyway. Notice the order here, because the order matters more than the outcome. First, he names the fear. Then he asks for relief, directly and without softening the request. Only afterward does he choose obedience. Skipping straight to obedience without the honesty in between turns, prayer into performance instead of a real conversation with God. This gives you a pattern to follow the next time anxiety hits before a hard day. Name the fear out loud, to yourself and to God. Ask directly for relief, without dressing the request up in polished religious language. Then decide to move forward even without a guarantee of comfort. Notice the pattern does not include pretending the fear away or forcing a smile until the feeling passes. Jesus never does this here. He sweats blood and he still walks toward the cross a few hours later. If you are waiting on a hard diagnosis, walking into a layoff meeting, or ending a relationship you once hoped would last, this pattern still works. Name the fear. Ask God for another way. Move forward anyway. People raise a few questions about this passage often. First, does asking for another way mean Jesus doubted his mission? No. Asking for relief does not equal doubting the plan. Jesus asks honestly, then submits fully. Honest questions and full obedience exist together in the same prayer. Second, does feeling anxious mean weak faith? Look at the evidence directly in front of you. The Son of God sweated blood from anxiety the night before his death. Anxiety and faith are not opposites. Jesus proves fear and obedience walk together. Faith does not remove fear. Faith moves you through fear. Third, some study Bibles include a footnote saying the oldest surviving manuscripts leave out verses 43 and 44. Does this mean the story is fake? Scholars disagree on why some early copies leave these verses out, and this remains an honest, unresolved debate among people who study ancient manuscripts for a living. What stays consistent across the debate is the surrounding passage, where Jesus already shows deep anguish, asks for the cup to pass, and submits to his Father regardless. The core lesson holds steady even where scholars debate two verses. Here is the main point of this lesson, stated plainly. Jesus faced a real, physical, overwhelming wave of fear the night before his death, prayed for another way, received strength rather than escape, and chose obedience anyway. The confusion many people carry, believing Jesus stayed calm through every hardship, gets resolved right here, He felt the full weight of what was coming. His body reacted under the strain, and he still walked toward the cross the next morning. Read Luke 22,039 through 46 on your own before the next lesson. Sit with the image of Jesus praying so hard his body broke under the strain. Then ask yourself this question and drop your answer in the comments below. When anxiety hits before a hard day, do you bring the fear honestly to God, or do you hide the fear and push through by yourself? Jesus modeled the honest path, naming his fear, asking for relief, then moving forward anyway. Follow his example this week and subscribe for next Sunday's walkthrough, where we cover what happens the moment the soldiers arrive to arrest him.